Hi, it's Karen, the Weekend Craftaholic, and today I wanted to walk you through my Go Press and Fold machine. I am making this walkthrough in two parts. The first one really is out of the box and showing you some examples of my hits and misses as I've been playing with it and getting used to the machine. The second part will be a little bit more polished, if you like, and we'll show you some techniques and examples of what you can do with it apart from just foiling. So let's look at what you get out of the box. I actually got mine from Lincraft at Christmas, so I've got a selection of stamps here that may differ to yours. Naturally, you get the machine itself, which you need to plug in. I'm showing you here a selection of coloured foils that I've got from Spotlight. These do not come out the box, but I do want to see the amount of colours and the range that they do have. These are $4 from Spotlight, which I think is a really good price point, and this is just probably a third of the selection. These are some examples that I made over Christmas, and I'm going to be talking you through some of these effects as well as we go through. So some of them are made with hot foils and some are just with my regular dies that I use with my acrylic stamps. So this is obviously the machine that we're purchasing, the Go Press and Foil, and it does actually come away quite nicely. So you do need a die cut machine to fit this in. You can see it just looks like a normal regular platform. So I also got a big shot for Christmas, so it was perfect timing for this. But I believe it works with lots of other die cutting machines as well, like Spellbinders. So you naturally get the hot plate itself. As I mentioned, I got a selection of hot foils when I purchased this from Lincraft, and I would imagine most of the boxes do come with a selection of these for you to try. It also came with a couple of sample rolls of foil, so you can see I got the silver and gold here. And you also get these little tongs or tweezers, and these are magnetic, and it means that when you're actually picking up your hot foil from the hot platform, because it does get really hot, you can just actually squeeze the tweezers together, and when you release them, it releases the die at the same time, or the hot foil at the same time. So really easy to use, and a really good safety feature as well of the product, which I like. You also get this little mat, I think it's silicone maybe, and that's obviously to put your hot foils on once you've used them. And I almost forgot to mention the little instruction book that you would get as well in your box. So it's got some really good step-by-step instructions in here, how to use with the hot foil stamps, your regular cutting dies, with chipboard, and also as a letterpress. So there's lots of uses for this, a little bit more than I originally thought, which is great. Now these are just some examples of some additional ones you can buy, just some regular sentiments I guess that you would expect to find. These are also from Go Press and Foil Couture Creations, the Anna Griffin range. I do wish there was more selection here in Australia, but I'm happy with what I've got so far. Alright, so those are some additional things you can get, so let's get stuck into how to actually use the machine. So you can see here I've set up my desk space now with my die cut machine, and I'm just removing the platform from that because you don't need it. Naturally the Go Press and Foil has got its own platform. I find it does take 5 minutes or so to warm up. You can see the little green lights on the top of the screen there now, and you can see because it's been on a little while there's a little bit of condensation under the plastic. So I'm going to start with a hot foil, and you can see you've got a one flat side and one side that's raised. So you want the flat side down on the actual hot plate bed itself, and you can obviously just place that anywhere you want to. I'm using the tongs here just to show you how you can squeeze the tongs together to lift the hot foil and release to put it back down. So once you've got the machine warmed up and you've got the green light on, put your hot foil on, close the lid and leave it for about a minute or so. Whilst you're waiting for it, you do get your foil ready, and you can see I've got a scrap of gold foil here, and I'm going to place that face down, and then I've just got some 8-pound cardstock that I'm going to place on top as well to transfer that foil image onto the card. Now I'm hoping to get it in the centre. I always struggle with this, but I'm just going to pop this down now and not worry too much about technique, just while I show you how the machine actually works. So you also need what they call shim, and this is just a couple of extra sheets of paper. This is just some extra covers that I've got from some paper pads. It doesn't tell you in the instruction book to leave it any longer, but I do find leaving it a minute or so does actually help. Now again, I haven't sped this up. I wanted you to see in real time just how slowly I do feed this through. And I feed this through forward and backwards twice. I have tried doing a little bit faster. I've tried just doing once. This technique seems to work best for me. So with 2 shims on a normal 8-pound cardstock, running it through twice, or 4 times if you like, going forward and back twice, gives me the best result that I like with that letterpress effect as well as the foil transfer. So once that's done, just placing it back on its little stand itself, and then using the tweezers or the tongs just to remove those shims, because as I say, it does get very hot. And then you can see there the finished effect. Now, although that's got a really good transfer, I don't like the fact that it's not centered, and obviously that means now I've got to cut down the cardstock slightly just to make that the right size for me and get it centered. And this is the leftover foil that we have as well, which I think looks really good in itself. And then, as I mentioned, squeeze the tongs together, just hover over the hot foil, it jumps and lifts, and then press to release. Okay, now I'm also going to quickly show you a little technique that I found useful to try and get it centered. You can see on the black foil bed or the hot bed plate, there's lots of little squares and lines. So wherever you decide you want your center to be, I've just used a little bit of washi tape to give me some guidance when I'm actually placing my foil, and then more importantly the cardstock over it, because depending on how much foil you've actually cut away, it's not very easy to see the foil underneath. So you can see I've placed my foil, I'm giving it a minute or so now just to warm up and heat up. You can see that green light's flashing, so you know it's not fully hot at this stage. But I find that's not really a problem if I've been using it before. Now you'll see here I've added a few extra little washi strips on the left hand side there, and I guess you could do this also at the top or bottom as well if you wanted a portrait rather than a landscape centered image. And again, I just find that a really easy way of knowing where to apply the card so I get a centered image on this. Okay, so I'm just waiting for it to heat up now. I've got a couple of sheets of shim in there as well, as we mentioned before, and I have sped this up slightly for you this time, but again I'm going through twice, backwards and forwards, so 4 impressions if you like, through the die cut machine just to get that form nice and applied onto the cardstock. And over the next coming days I will add a quick reference sheet on my blog for anyone that might find it useful to go through these step-by-step techniques. So just carefully taking that off now as we did before, and you can see that impression is left on the card sheet. In this next section I'm going to show you some examples of some hits and misses that I found whilst working through this. First of all, a good result for me is using 3 shims. That's with just normal cardstock. This one I've done with a regular die with 5 shims, only because it was a textured card and a little bit thicker. Again, this was a regular die but on normal cardstock, so only 3 shims for this effect. This one was a bit of a fail. I only actually put it through the die cut machine once instead of twice, and I also didn't use any extra shim. This was just with the normal 3 shim. So when I redid this with that extra shim going up to 4 and twice with the die cut, it came out perfect. This was a super messy one. I'd put far too many shims on. I think I'd done 7 because it was regular cardstock rather than textured, and it was a regular die rather than a hot foil. I thought I needed to leave it just that little bit longer and put extra shims on. This is another example of leaving it on the Go Press and Fold machine for too long. It was all smudged, and it also left marks further down on the card. And whilst the technique worked on this, it came out with a really good impression. It wasn't centered, and that's why I'm now using my technique with washi tape. Now on this particular one I didn't leave long enough on the Go Press and Fold machine, so again it didn't come out at all as well as it should have done. This one I've no idea what caused that little bit of a problem near the letter T. But I guess you can get away with it because it looks like a kind of distress foil effect. So I hope you enjoyed my little walkthrough of the Go Press and Fold machine. Don't forget I will be doing a part 2 with a lot more techniques and ideas to share, so please join me for that one.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you've got any comments about this video, please leave them below. I'd love to see them. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. That way YouTube knows to recommend similar ones for you. And finally, if you'd like to see more from me, and I hope so, please subscribe by clicking the link below. I post new content every weekend.